Hi, and welcome to the Womb Birth Collective's Pregnancy and Postpartum Summit. I'm your host, Melissa Chin Casey, and today we're talking to Alba Gosalves. Alba is a practitioner of Brennan Healing Science, which is an in depth healing modality consisting of a 4-year training on hands on energy work with a psychotherapeutic focus. Through the lens of her work, she helps heal people in preparation for birth and parenthood. She's also a doula who holds a holistic space for the unfolding of all stages of parenthood and holds a special place in her heart for postpartum and beyond. Her approach is rooted in evidence based techniques as well as the human energy field, indigenous birth wisdom, and her own ancestral lineage of healers. Welcome, Alba. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Melissa.
So, I wanted to just ask you if you could please get us started in understanding the work and the discussion that we're going to have by kind of telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your healing modality. How do we approach what you how you heal, and how do you look at the journey of pregnancy through parenthood?
All right. So, a little bit about myself. I am a mother of two. I had my children actually very close together, back to back, and so that's a whole other kind of dynamic that we focus on. But as far as my own personal healing journey, I am someone who, yeah, it's in my family, okay, in my generational wounds and everything like this, we do have a history of addiction, of mental health, imbalances, this kind of thing that I've seen, kind of come up in my own personal life, right? And so in identifying these things, parenthood will accentuate, whatever wounds and whatever traumas, we have had passed down to us by our ancestors, by our relatives, right? And so the healing modalities that I focus on, especially Brennan healing science, is going into the energy field, um, picking up, and it's not interpreting, but it's allowing the information, the energy, to come in, and we do this using our high sense perception. And so high sense perception is the ability to perceive the subtle energies in the field. Okay. And so we have different ways of bringing that information in, or how it presents to us, either through sight, through kinesthetic feeling it in our body, through just direct knowing, through the intuition, those kinds of examples. Um, and then as far as, for example, the indigenous practices, this is the understanding that we are relatives of everything, of the whole earth, right? That everything is interconnected, and that we do create a union with one higher consciousness. And so this is also seen in Brennan healing science. We work with several different energy levels or energy fields, and some are more grounded in this, let's say terrestrial reality. But then we have higher, more subtle spiritual energies that do connect us to the higher consciousness. And so when we are, well, it's even before we're born, we actually have our spirits that come into contact with our parents, okay, the spirits of our parents, those who we create a contract and agree to be born with and through, okay? And so this is because when we come into this reality, into this 3D realm, it's because our spirits are looking to learn something, to evolve, right? And as we evolve and we learn certain things, we are removing the illusion of division, right, of duality, and coming more into the understanding and cohesion of unity with the higher consciousness, with this higher spirit. Some people call it God, some people call it creator, some people call it the unified field. Okay. And so this is basically my practice is helping people come into a more grounded and deeper understanding of who they are, right? Identifying the emotional triggers that are caused by the wounds that we get in childhood. Okay, so the wounds that we interpret. Okay, because trauma, it's not what happens to you, it's the interpretation of what happens to you. All right, because for example, two people, they can be raised by the same parents but not have the same wounds by the same parents, right? So again, it's the interpretation of what it is that happens to you. And in my work, we work on identifying what these wounds are, coming into a healing response, right? So the wound will create certain energetic blocks in the body that then create emotional and behavioral defense patterns, right? And so this is then going to cause the field to form in a certain way. And unless we remove these blocks, unless we understand what these wounds are and what these defense patterns are, we can't move it, okay, and bring consciousness, bring light into the situation, basically. And so once we bring awareness, consciousness, light, then we're able to heal from it. So what healing is it's a changing of the reaction into just an allowance and an observation. Okay, so we're no longer coming from a reactive point, but we're coming from an understanding and an integrative point. Okay. And so the healing modality, Brennan Healing Science, it's a hands-on healing technique. It can be done at a distance, but when I have clients in person, we are placing the hands gently on the different joints, starting at the feet and then moving up to the head. And we place the hands on the different chakras as well. And then we do like detail work, which means tapping into the 4 dimensions of the human energy field. This is the Brennan modality. This is the Brennan structure, I guess, theory. And so these 4 modalities, these 4 dimensions are the physical body, the aura, which consists of the 7 chakras, and each chakra is the gateway to a different level in the field. Okay, so the aura has 7 layers in it, structured and unstructured. So for example, the first level of the field, the gate is the root chakra, and it's what's closest to our body. So it's the structured matrix, lines of light, and they're usually a blue hue. Sometimes when it's very undercharged, it'll be maybe more gray, or maybe like you've gone through a surgery or an accident, the lines are actually broken and frayed. And so when this happens, we have a depletion of energy on the first level of the field. Okay. The second level, the 4th level, and the 6th level are all unstructured, which means like the second level, the emotion body, is seen in clouds. Okay, so there will be clouds in the body. Okay, maybe like you have just clouds here, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders. These are clouds that we can clear to help alleviate this sensation. The 3rd level, the 5th level, and the 7th, along with the 1st, are all structured. They have lines of light. And the 3rd level, for example, is the mental body. So it's our personal thoughts towards ourselves. The 4th level is the astral, and this is where we relate with people. This is the level of relations. It's not just with people, but it's also with, for example, spirit guides or with our ancestors who have crossed over. This is the field where we're going to see that energy and that essence. So in my healings, I'll actually have parents or grandparents, great grandparents who have crossed over coming into the healing to give advice or guidance, hold space while we are aligning the field. Okay. And then the last 3, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, these are higher more subtle, more uh, cosmically connected energies. So it's more in unison with the Godhead, with Creator, with the unified field, basically. So we are all part of the same thing, of the same energy. But again, it's like coming down into the 3D reality. It's like we're breaking down, and just becoming a little bit more individualized, right? So that we can interact with each other and experience different things, learn different lessons. The last two dimensions are the Hara line and the core star. And so the Hara line is the line of intentionality, and that's what separates us from the spirit realm. Spirits don't have a Hara line, we do. And the Hara line is our line of intentionality, and it goes from the crystalline core of the earth all the way up to the Godhead, basically, again. So that is what is literally anchoring our energetic field to the earth. And so, as a Brennan practitioner, instead of channeling energy from the cosmos, like maybe you do with Reiki, what we're doing is we're channeling the energy from the core of the earth. And then, channeling the energy through our hands to the client. Then the core star, that's our individuated essence. I like to refer to it as our energetic thumbprint. And it's what makes me individually me. It's what makes you individually you. And that is what allows us also to see the duality in this unified field, right? Because again, we are all part of the same energy, but that particular essence is what makes you uniquely you. It's like your drop in the ocean, right? So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was a big nutshell. There's so much packed into that. I want to pick up on a couple of the pieces. I was just talking to someone about, Liz, she called it the wiggly niggly or something like that, something like tingly. So it was a certain word, but she pointed to that same place that you pointed to with the core star, and it was her conversation was all about listening to that inner tug or that inner pull and what makes you uniquely you and what you uniquely need in pregnancy and birth.
Mm-hmm.
So it's beautiful that you're talking about not only childhood wounds and how they affect us and how that imprint that they have on us and how we carry that in, but you're also talking about our children and how we imprint on them. So I wanted to ask about pregnancy. Let's start from the beginning, right? So if we're starting from pregnancy, moving through birth, and then parenting, how do these imprints that we've gotten, how do they show up in pregnancy? And, are there some common ones that show up across the board?
Well, yeah, for example, let's say I'm a very anxious individual. Okay. So anxiety, it's presented in the field as like a root chakra that's just, pulled up. Okay. It's a feeling of not feeling safe. And so if we have this constant feeling of not feeling safe during pregnancy, this is something that we are energetically passing on to the baby. Okay, so the baby is going to be living within, an environment in which they are not feeling safe. And so with that, that'll cause the spirit to not fully ground and anchor into their physical body. So once they're born, their body may actually present, with elongated limbs or torso. It's it's basically a depletion of life force that then causes the person to, go into the spirit realm a lot more easily than, someone who's more grounded in their body, right? So you might find people who, just kind of like disconnect, or maybe they have like a shallow look in their eyes, or maybe you're talking to them and you can just see them zone out, You know, this is wounding that comes in the early stages of life. So in utero, and then just a few months after birth too. So for example, also birth trauma, right, or emergency C-sections, this kind of thing that will cause this kind of wounding to present in the field as well. Because again, it's a sense of not feeling safe, not being, okay in this physical realm. And so the spirit's like, I'm going to check out. I'm going to go back to the spirit realm. I'm going to hang out there because that's
Mm.
what I know and that's what feels safe for me. But then you'll get, again, also like someone who has very cold hands and feet, again, not completely in their physical body.
Oh, wow. Okay. So this is posing some like philosophical questions for me, right? So because there's this balance of, well, there's two things happening that I'm seeing is one is if we're born into that already, then we're going to pass that on to our children and then they're going to pass it on to their children. So it's just, a curious thing to say, what would happen if we actually all took healing very seriously? And, how would we be different as a whole human, group? But the other thing that it brings up is this balance of, um, I think it's really natural to have a lot of guilt as a mother, especially a new mother, because we take our jobs so seriously. And I think it takes a while to figure out like this relationship to like, oh, this guilt. Oh, what are we doing to our children? Um, but then there's that whole balance of, well, guilt isn't necessarily serving us. And by strengthening ourselves and healing ourselves, we're letting ourselves be better parents and more available. And so
Mhm.
there's this like delicate balance of how do we move forward knowing that one, we need to take healing seriously and we can take healing seriously and there is a way to heal. And two, well, if that's what I did to my child, like how do I process that when there's guilt and there's I want to do better and all that stuff? I know that's a pretty big question, but is there anything that you can speak to that? Um,
Would
yeah.
love to, because that's something that I see so much in my practice is just like the parent guilt. Like, oh my God, I'm wounding my child. Oh my God, I'm damaging my child. I must be a horrible human being. No, no, we are all human. And the thing is that we came here to learn certain things. And first person who are the first people who are going to wound us are our parents. But the thing is that we agreed on this before we came. Like we knew what we were going to be born into. We knew what kind of wounds we were going to have, and we knew what kind of life was going to unfold. Now, here's the thing: we do have free will, okay? But there's a certain intention, again, for why we are born, okay? And our hara line has this information. What is the intention? What is the purpose for why you were born? So along the hara line, we have our dantian, which allows us to ground in, but we also have a point here called our soul seat. And here we have our soul's longing too. So this is an energetic point that allows us to, also tap into why we came. But okay, so going back to, the mom guilt, we need to understand that our children are going to be wounded no matter what. Okay. And so when we identify the kinds of behavioral patterns that they are developing, right, then we can come in with a healing response. It's all about creating awareness. And also as a mother, it's about accountability too. So it's like, look, oh, I yelled at my kid, oh my God, I feel so terrible. But also you can do repair work. You can speak to them in nonviolent communication. You can explain to them emotions and emotion reaction, and there you're doing repair work too. So it's not so much about like, oh my God, I messed up. And there are no mistakes. Mistakes don't exist. They're all opportunities for growth. It's all a learning experience to again just bring light to what we may have in shadow. And so what maybe we have in shadow is like Maybe, for example, I'm a person who it's very difficult for me to admit when I'm wrong, because as a child, I was always told, no, what you're saying is wrong. No, I'm not going to listen to you, by our parents, right? So then as a mother, when my child wants to say or correct me in a certain way, which they're right, right? But maybe because of my wounding of, no, I always have to be right, I don't see them, and I negate what they're trying to say to me, and I recreate that same wounding. But if I have awareness of, this is what happened to me as a child, and it was so painful, right? I see that I'm doing this now because it's a reaction. Hold on. Let me take a pause, right? Let me sit with this. And then let me go ahead and then do the repair work with my child to say, you know what? Like, actually, what you're saying is right. And yes, mommy does need to correct this, or mom or daddy does need to correct this. The fear that we have as a parent is that by admitting wrong, right, we think that then the child's not going to respect us, right? Think that the child is then going to think, oh, well, mommy doesn't know everything, and, let me not listen to her. But actually, in validating your child's experience, you're creating a stronger bond between you two, and you're allowing more respect. It's mutual respect that's happening here. So in turn, the child's going to respect you more for saying, like, oh, they do see that, what they did is not okay, and I am validated in my experience. Oh, I can trust her, to hold me, or I can trust him to hold me, so
Yeah, I want to repeat that. So there are no mistakes, but they are opportunities to see places that we don't have quite healed yet. Is that right? So when we make what we would consider a mistake, it's really an experience, a relationship, especially with our children, if we're triggered or something. It's a relationship and experience that we're having with them that allows us to see where we have opportunities for growth and healing. Is that right?
correct.
Okay.
1000%.
And then yeah, it's such a shift for me that I feel like I have to write that one down.
Because
And
when we think we made a mistake, then it perpetuates the feeling of shame and guilt.
right.
We see that it's an opportunity for growth, then we give ourselves grace, and we can extend a grace to our
That
child.
is a big shift. So instead of feeling shame, guilt, terrible, oh, what did I do? I'm a terrible mom. It's, wow, I have something here that is painful, and I have the opportunity to work on it. And I have the opportunity to tell my child, hey, I have some pain here. Maybe I didn't respond the way I wanted to. I'm going to work on it. And that's actually going to strengthen their self-esteem. It's going to validate them, and it's going to create a stronger bond between the parent and the child.
Correct.
Wow.
The process is actually healing all of that ancestral traumas and woundings over on the other side. When we heal here on the physical plane, our ancestors are feeling it on the other side, and then that's creating a new framework and a new paradigm for the future generations to come in through too. So,
Right, because you've stopped the pattern, the pattern of suffering, and the pattern that's wounding.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Let's move on to another one. That was a great example. Do you have another example of how things show up in pregnancy in a common way?
So let's see. As
Or
far as
birth?
birth, like woundings and things like this.
Yeah.
Well, for example, in our modern day, okay, let's go. So we were talking about, so that first original wounding, that's the schizoid wounding. Let's go over to the oral, okay? The oral wounding, this comes later on in life, like about like 6 months on, okay? So
And let me just interrupt real quick. That first wounding, is it one kind of primary flavor, or can there be different flavors in that wounding, like different wounds in that time?
There can, this is for that time, this is the particular wounding that
Okay.
happens here because that's what creates the defense pattern of like zoning, checking out, going into the spirit realm. Okay, so the wound is then what creates the defense behavior, right? So the defense behavior is basically how the little spirit sees how they survive, basically, within this like chaos. Okay. So that is again what creates the behavioral pattern, which is then our defense. When we get triggered and we go into our emotional reaction, this is the behavior we go into. Okay. So there are people who have, maybe a primary schizoid wounding, but that doesn't mean that you don't have like the other ones. The other ones are oral, masochist, psychopath, and rigid. And these don't have anything to do with like the psychological terms of schizophrenia or masochism. These are different. Okay, they have different qualities and characteristics. So just to make that difference there, it's not like schizoid wounding, you're schizophrenic. No, that's not what I'm saying. But again, we can have a particular main wound, but then have like little aspects of these other ones. And our life, depending on what we do and how we heal and what happens to us, like we can move into different characterologies, basically predominant characterology. So the next characterology is oral. The oral wounding is a wounding of not getting enough nourishment from the parent. Okay, so at least how it presented in my life, right? My mother stopped breastfeeding me from a very early age, 3 months actually. And so, because she didn't understand why I was crying all the time, she's like, well, I fed you. You seem fine. I birthed you. I don't know. She just wanted to see how much she was feeding me. So she took me off the breast and gave me formula. And that was her way of dealing with that. Right. But for me, on a spiritual level, I wasn't ready to, you know, not have that nourishment from her. Right. And so, also with a parent who is not maybe like completely emotionally available or attentive, this can also create that oral wounding as well. Or for example, also sleep training, okay, can also create this wound, the oral wound of again not receiving enough nourishment. And so what happens is the person actually doesn't have enough of their own essence come up into the field either, because they're constantly trying to get nourishment and energy from outside sources. Okay. So when a child is emotionally nourished and emotionally, looked after properly, at least enough for that particular soul, then their essence is also able to come up and shine through. Otherwise, for example, someone who has oral characterology, a lot of it, they'll be, a people pleaser or find ways to manipulate people in order to like them, right? So that then they can receive energy from them. Okay. Because it's a source that they didn't get enough of when they were kids, right? Not enough attention from mom, not enough attention from dad, trying to find a way to get energetically fed and nourished. Because the thing is that when we are babies and children, we're constantly getting our energy, a lot of it, from our parents too. Okay,
Mm.
so we have these cords between us, these relational cords, and they can have blocks. They can have, again, things that aren't allowing the energy and the information to travel through, right? The parent, again, may have their own personal block and feel like, oh, you should be able to take care of yourself. But then they forget that child is just one, like they need more attention, they need stimulation, they need constant nurturing and care, right?
Yeah, and I just want to, I keep having this thought in my mind is that, we are talking about pregnancy and birth. This summit is to prepare people for pregnancy and birth, but and so I think there's going to be a tendency to think about, oh, how do I parent when we're listening to you? And I think there's definitely a space for that. But from just my where I sit, I also want to invite people to look at this first within themselves. It's that whole like putting your mask on before, your oxygen mask before putting your child's mask on, that keeps coming up for me. And before, and there's a lot of I was just having this conversation. There's a lot of things that we may choose, whether it's like a pacifier or to bottle feed, or
Mhm.
as tools to help us. But I think it's really because we need them, right? So
Mhm.
I would invite people not just to think about like, how do I do better for my child, the whole guilt thing, how do I, you know, um, raise them to have this like perfect, vibrant energy field, but look within first, and see where we can heal ourselves first,
Yes.
because that's where I'm going to when I hear you. But I'm not pregnant, so it's easier for me. I know if I was pregnant, I would automatically be like, what do I do for my baby? So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But again, it's the oxygen mask thing, you know, you have to first nurture yourself. So you really have to take a look at you. You have to understand what your triggers are. You have to understand what your wounds are. Because
Mhm.
again, like once the baby is born, you're going to be so triggered. You're going to have so many emotions. You're going to have so much going on for you that if you don't first have like at least a basic understanding of yourself, a deeper understanding of you and what it is that you need, it's going to be a lot harder for you as a parent later on, right?
Mhm.
Because you're not going to understand where these triggers, what these triggers are. First off, you're not going to know what it is that triggers you, and second, when you do get triggered, you're going to go into that guilt and that shame, because you're going to go into an emotional reaction that then is going to cause some sort of wounding, and then again you're going to go into the shame, which is then just like bringing the energy down. It's depleting your energy, and it's creating this this again this shame feedback, right? Of like, oh, I'm doing this is terrible, oh my god, I'm such a terrible mom. But then you get triggered again because you're so stressed that you're like messing up too,
Right,
and then you're just going into the whole loop again.
right. So this would be a great interview to like listen to once for yourself, and then like listen to it again for your children the second time around. Okay, sorry, you can continue. I just wanted to put that invitation out there for people
No,
first.
totally fine. And so, like, the thing is, like, the way that we can also become a little bit more familiar with ourselves, with our essence, for example, with our longing, is to reflect on our own childhood and the things that like really moved us or really interested us when we were kids. Because there's no greater time where your essence is just pure and flowing and all over the place, right? Than when you're a kid. And as a parent, you can see what your child likes and what they're like you witness this, right?
Mm.
And so our job as a parent is to create an environment that supports them in their growth, instead of hindering it by placing all of these constructs and things that we should do, right? Because society has certain ideas of how to do things, or ways that we need to be, basically, which a lot of the times they do hinder our essence. They want to put us in a box, standardized testing, and all this kind of stuff, no arts or no music in schools, like all of this is what helps the course start and our essence to flow through is creativity, actually, right? This is how we can really bring our essence up and out through art, self-expression. And art, it can be anything from like drawing and using different mediums to singing to dancing to whatever, basically, whatever you find that you want to create. That is, where you can begin to come into contact with your essence. So, yeah.
That creative expression, that creative force, which is really, I mean, what pregnancy is it's so palpable during pregnancy, that life force, that creative force, that birth energy, all of that stuff.
Yeah, because we are literally like the embodiment of creative force, right?
Right.
We are literally creating a body within us. We're creating a life, the physical vessel. We're creating a physical vessel within us. The spirit's coming in and out. Okay. The spirit's not always inside of the the baby or the womb. And there's actually several accounts of children speaking to their parents about, oh yeah, I remember when I was in the womb, but I could see you from up here, and you were doing this, and you were doing this, and you were doing that, and then the parents like, how do you know this? Because you were in the womb, or how do you know that this happened, right? And it's because the spirit is around us. The spirit is around. It's observing. It's creating that connection, right? It's again coming in and out of the body, right? And
Mm.
again, that's why when we have a wound in this particular spot, it's so easy for us to shoot back up and out, because this is something that we're already used to doing.
It reminds me of walking into a room with a newborn baby. And when you look at that baby, it feels like the baby's like this big. It takes up so much space, but it's a tiny little body, but there's just so much
Yeah.
love in the air and so much brightness in the room. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, when with newborns, up until later on, like at 7 is when we have more of like a creation of when like the energy field will like solidify more. And so, for example, like the chakras will develop screens on them, okay, to help metabolize the energies. Before the age of 7, the chakras on babies are completely open, they don't have a screen. The crown chakra is actually a lot more expanded. The root chakra is very much smaller, right? So this is also what allows the facilitation to go into the spirit realm even more. Someone who has a very large crown chakra is someone who can access the spirit energy very much. But babies are just in it all the time, you know,
Mm,
until, they start, closing it up and opening up their root chakra. And then all the other chakras start having like the screens on them. But that's also why, like, we as parents, as mothers and fathers, we feel so compelled to hold the baby so close to us all the time. Like,
yeah.
like this innate, like, I need to protect my baby, because literally you are protecting them from the uh, forces around, like all of the other energies that are coming in and through. And so your field is literally protecting the baby and helping to metabolize the energy for them.
Mm,
So it's like a mama bird chewing up the food and giving it to the baby, right?
hmm.
We are, processing and metabolizing the energies for the baby, and then passing it on like that.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of the breast milk. So the breast milk, they
Mhm.
find that it has like all of these great qualities, but it changes depending on what the baby needs. And I think it's the communications through the saliva, right? So if the baby's sick, or if the baby's,
Mhm.
thirsty, or if the baby's, really hungry, the what's in our breast milk, if it's bedtime, if it's, it
Yeah.
actually changes. So
Mhm.
it's interesting to think that it works that way on an even more subtle field than milk, and physical bodies.
Yeah, because again, like everything in the universe is energy. And so everything first starts on the subtle energies, and then it manifests into the physical. Like we think it's the other way around, where it's like the physical and then that affects the energy around, but it's literally first the energies are here and created and, brought in, and then it goes into the physical. That's why, for example, when we have energy blocks and we've had an energy block there long enough, then it starts to create the physical dis-ease in the body, right?
I see. Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait till they invent more technology around this. you know, right now we have our own bodies, right? And so your body is attuned to reading all of these energies, and our bodies are the most sensitive machines. That's what we say at home birth, right? Because we rely on our hands so much, and we are skilled in dealing with newborn complications and resuscitation, whereas in the hospital it takes a whole team to, if a baby needs resuscitation, because one person's on the machine, one person's reading this, one person's reading that. And of course it's always better to have a team even at a home birth, but because our bodies are so sensitive and our hands are so sensitive, and we can hear, listen, smell, and just different things, different sensations, then we can actually get all of the information that the machines are getting. but quicker, right? So like we can feel the baby's heartbeat, we can feel the baby's breath, things like that. And yeah, it's amazing to think that our bodies are actually so much more finely tuned than a lot of the machines out there.
Yeah. Yeah. We are literally a tuning fork, and we are constantly enmeshed in the field. People talk about, oh, we'll tap into the field. You can, no, there's no tapping in. We're in it.
Mm,
There's no tapping in. If anything, just silence so you can hear and feel a bit more, right? But it's not like, oh, let me tap into the energy field. No, you're in it. You're in it already. There's
right. There's nowhere to go.
we're here. We're in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What we can do is just, quiet the mind so that we can see what comes up. And so what comes up is not brought on by thought. It's not brought on by anything. It's literally, you know, um, information that literally just comes up. It's like someone just popped it into your head, you know, um,
Okay.
for for personal interpretation or whatever. If I would say, for example, as a healer, when I tap into the field of someone, when I actually sit and quiet my mind and listen to what's going on in their field, I'm not interpreting what the message is. Like, for example, like I might, see an earth, or not an earth, but like a tree and roots, and I could go into, oh, the explanation is this person needs to ground, blah, blah, they have to do this. But maybe when I'm speaking to my client and it's like, this tree and da, 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 maybe it actually has like an emotional connection. They're like, oh, actually the tree you're describing is one that I had in childhood and this kind of thing, So again, we don't want to interpret the message for the client. We just say as is. This is what presented. I don't know what it could possibly mean. How does it resonate for you? And then you allow the client to be the one to feel into it, right? And to make the interpretation, to make the deeper connection and understanding of what's going on there.
That's a beautiful way to practice because it's so respectful of what's happening to the person, centered around the person.
Mm-hmm.
Can we go back to the woundings you were starting to talk about? I think it was like the oral wounding and how
Mm-hmm.
that shows up in pregnancy and birth and postpartum, and maybe some of the other little ones that you were talking about. Can you describe those?
Yeah, so for example, in pregnancy, the way it can show up, this oral wounding, a mother who has this oral wounding is, for example, feeling like she's not taking enough vitamins, she's not drinking enough water, she's not doing enough in order to, create a good environment for the baby, right? And so this could be a mother who's like, no, I have to get all of the diapers ready, I have to get all of this. And then it's just this feeling of it never being enough, or you're overextending yourself a lot. So mothers who do too much during pregnancy, right, and overcompensate that wound with this behavior. Okay. Does this make sense?
I'm thinking of so many people right now because it's so prevalent. I mean, obviously, the first wound is very prevalent too. Anxiety is so prevalent, and disconnection is so prevalent. But I think this one can be really strong in a person. This drive to feel like they're not doing enough and continue to do more and more and more and feel like they're not prepared. It's
Mhm.
it can be such a strong one. So
And that's a great point. Feeling that you're not prepared, because the thing is that we all carry the innate wisdom within us already. Like we have the deep understanding of what it is to be a mother. Our instincts are so good. Our intuition is so good. And in fact, these things are heightened when we become pregnant, right? And this is our divine intelligence. And so if we just like really tune in and sit with ourselves and hear this, then we can begin to really trust ourselves. But this oral wounding is the lack of trust that enough nurturing is going to come our way. So that's why we're like, I have to read more books, I have to read more parenting stuff, I have to read more articles, I have to read more. And the thing is that our society, like our humanity, these are the two most prevalent woundings that we have: the
Mm.
schizoid and oral. Then like masochist, psychopath, and rigid, they're more like they get like layered on top of, you know, of the original woundings of schizoid and oral. Okay, so that's a distinction that I wanted to make there too. But again, that's how it'll present, you know, for a mother or even for a father. A father could also say, oh well, you know, this particular way of doing something is not enough. You know, I've found a lot of conflict in couples, for example, with home birth, for example, where the mother is very much, you know, like, no, I know that this is what I want. She has this innate wisdom, this inner understanding that, you know, she wants to birth at home within her safe environment, her safe feeling, her bubble, right? And then the father's like, no, that's not okay. I need more assurance, I need more protection, I need more staff, I need more machines, I need more safety, right? Because at some point they didn't have that for themselves, for example, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's interesting too, because if you look at the data, I think the most current data on home birth, and this is a couple years old, so it was that it was safer for moms, less maternal mortality
Mm-hmm.
to give birth at home, at least low risk, right? When you're comparing low risk to low risk hospital birth, low risk home birth, it was, I think about safer for moms, and 0.01 times more mortality for newborns, which is a very slim,
So
you
small.
know,
Yeah.
considering I mean, that could easily go either way, but sometimes even with that information, it still feels like not enough. Like you said, like we need more people, more assurance, more. So it's interesting to think that, I think everyone has a different way of thinking and different philosophy, different views. So it could possibly stem from the fact that that parent would like to birth in the hospital. That's where they feel good, and that's their comfort zone. But it's interesting to think that maybe it's also a feeling of not being nourished. And if we do nourish ourselves on that really core level, maybe it would shift how we relate to the world would shift.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
And
what can a mother? Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
well,
you
what I
want
was
to.
going to say, it doesn't mean anyone who is feeling like, oh, I don't like this is not, you know, the way. It doesn't mean that they had that oral wounding and it's not enough, for
Right.
example, right? I do want to make that distinction that it's not primarily or only the oral wounding. There are other factors that do go into this, but
Exactly.
one example that I do see a lot.
Exactly. It might be a place to explore if it's coming from oral, or if it's coming from, or like a wounding, or if it's coming from, an actual preference, which is a different story than a wounding.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I I'm gonna cut this out right here. I'm gonna go grab my charger.
Okay.
But can I leave you with a question while no, I want to hear. You can
Okay.
talk if you feel like talking, because I feel like you're flowing so good. But if you want to wait for me, that's fine too. The question is, when we have this wounding, this lack of core nourishment, like on a soul level, what can we do? Like, how do we nourish ourselves if it's not going to come from the books and the preparation and the classes and the this and the that? How do we feel fulfilled? What can we do?
So with that, it would be tapping into our core star, tapping into our essence, right? Because our essence is the energy that makes us uniquely us. And so when we haven't had enough nourishment on the outside, that doesn't allow us to feel safe to express who we truly are, right? So if we have this feeling of things are not enough, then the healing response is actually tapping into the core star and filling ourselves up with our own energy. Okay. Does this make sense?
It does. I'm just wondering, like, some practical ways. Is
Some
there
practical
like,
ways?
yeah, I mean, this is for, like, when we're feeling stuck and we just can't get around it. We just don't know what to do and how to tap in. Like,
Mhm.
Is there a practical method that we can say, okay, let me try this?
Well, sure, but again, it really depends on who you are. So like for example, if your essence is of a person who loves to be outside and you're a nature person, go outside. Go be with the trees. Or if you are a person who loves the water, go be by the water. Or if you're someone who really resonates with fire, for example, right? Light a candle, look at the candle. If you're someone who resonates with wind, the wind element, you can, for example, listen to the wind chimes, or you can sing, or you can do different things. So again, there are practical ways, but the key is for you to uncover, or I guess rediscover, remember what moves you in particular. So at least for me, a really good way of doing that is getting in contact with my inner child. Okay. And so I'll get in contact with my inner child by going into a meditative state and calling them forth, right? And I'm speaking to them as an adult, the adult that I am, and I'm listening to their response and I'm meeting their needs. So if they're like, I need a hug, or I need you to play with me, or I need this, XYZ, right? That's something that in the meditation I then visualize and offer over. So that's how that shows up. But again, it's remembering, what you really loved as a kid, as you know, as a teenager too. What really moved you? Because when we're teenagers, we're still kids, also, right? So, and that's really when we have this like sense of coming up and into the world. How do we want to present ourselves in the world, right? Coming into adulthood, but we're still kids, right? So we still have that access to that really innocent essence also. So, yeah.
Excellent. I mean, those are all practical, very practical. Um, so how do you work with people when you're actually applying this healing modality, and how do you work with pregnant people and postpartum people specifically, and into parenthood?
So the way that I work with them is we may begin with a ground healing science session. And so again, this is tuning into the client's field and seeing where there are imbalances in the field. So a parent will come in and they'll tell me what their intention for the healing is. And so from there, we work on aligning with that, right? On bringing this intention and moving forward. And so in the time that I'm tapping into the field, I'm receiving guidance and information, and then speaking with the client afterwards and saying, look, this is what came up. This is, I don't say like this is where we're gonna go. Like I present a series of questions like how does this feel? How does this resonate with you? What did this move you in a certain way? Right. And so then that's the psychotherapeutic aspect of this. And so it's not necessarily talk therapy, it's more of helping the client notice and feel the shift, the energetic shift in their field, and then working on maintaining that through, mindset or breath work, or again, intentionality and awareness. It's practicing awareness. Like I really recommend a mindfulness practice to the parents, a daily practice of what your thoughts are, what your emotions are. You get triggered. What was it that triggered you? How did you react? It's bringing awareness to your entire life, to the moment by moment. Okay, because our choices are what dictate the unfolding of our life, right? And the thing is, it's the choices that we make in every single moment. It's not like, oh, I made a choice in the morning and then I made a choice in the afternoon. No, there were like hundreds of thousand little choices that you made in between there. And so it's literally bringing awareness to that, right? And then creating what should we call it, a plan, I guess. Sometimes people need a little bit more nourishment, Sometimes people need more breath work. Sometimes people need more mindset counseling. Sometimes people need, trauma and grief counseling, and, getting in contact with that. Sometimes people need to uncover their family traumas and their family wounds because they don't know them. And it's something that's being presented in the healing too. And so my work is to help people feel the shift and then help to maintain that shift once they're out of the office, I guess.
Okay, so Alba, can you tell me how all of this applies moving in through birth and post in the postpartum period? Like, what are the energetics and what are the lessons that we can kind of take into postpartum and parenthood?
So the golden nuggets that I've really taken from, understanding the energetics of the human energy field and the energetic dynamics of parent and child is, I mean, I know we were talking about the wounds, and so I just really want to, say that understanding the energetics really works to our advantage, because then we're able to apply this knowledge in a practical way. So for example, breastfeeding. All right. Each nipple has a chakra. And as I was talking before, the chakras have filters. Okay. They have a screen that filters the energy. And so, sometimes when we are, feeling anxious or depressed, or we're going through something, but the baby is asking to feed in that moment, we can, with intention and visualization, knowing that we have the screen there, we can really ask, right, and intend for that breast milk to be free of this emotional charge. Okay, so we're really asking the chakras to really take the emotion, like the emotional clouds, okay, and allow them to remain in the screen. And then that allows the breast milk to be pure, right? And so we can even envision like white light going through, right? Yeah, so it really, in that aspect, it really gives the mother or the father, or whoever it is as the primary caregiver, it gives them autonomy and sovereignty over their energy field, and they don't feel helpless in this, emotional reaction, for example. Like, because we're human, we're going to have emotions, we're going to react in certain ways, right? But then it allows us to shift it, okay, and shift it in a way that we feel good about what we're able to give them, right? Because life happens, and sometimes it's, it's just bad timing. We have like a huge emotional, uproar, and hormones happen, and then the baby is crying, asking to be fed, and we're just like, oh my God, but I feel so terrible, I don't want to transfer this to the baby. But you don't have to. You don't have to. You have the power to you know pull that energy of those emotions back, but allow the nurturing flow of the milk to go to the baby, right? So that then they're not having to struggle by metabolizing your unprocessed emotions, right? Because the cords that we have relational cords between us and the children too, and they really do absorb our energies. Again, like, that's what they're meant to do. They're feeding their little energy bodies through our energies, through the energies all around, but it's up to us to shift it and to metabolize for them, because they just can't, right? So again, that's why we bring them in closer and everything, right? But in understanding the energetics, I've found, that it's really given me autonomy over my parenthood, my motherhood.
Yeah, there's it reminds me of this thing that we tell clients, in the midwifery world. And I always think about hormones. I don't necessarily think about the energy field when I'm working with people, but I think about hormones a lot. And so we say, if you're having something in pregnancy, some really stressful event, whether it's like a near car accident or, a real car accident, or just something emotional, we say, tell the baby that it's over now and it's okay, because you're having an adrenaline cascade, you're having a hormone cascade, where your hormones are telling you, fight or flight, flee,
Hmm.
whatever. But then you know when to stop because you know you're safe. But the baby is also having their own hormone cascade because
Hmm.
they're feeling yours.
Hmm.
But maybe they don't know it's that they're safe now and then it's time to stop. That reminds me of that wisdom.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the same thing. And so again, like the hormones, this is the physical evidence. It's the biological physiological representation of what's happening on the energetic field, right? Because some people think that it's either or, there's a distinction, there's a separation. That not at all. This is just again like the physical representation of what it is that's going on in the energetic.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's listening and centering around the pregnant person and helping to ground them, especially during birth or right before. I think that's such a big key factor for me because even though maybe I'm tapping into the emotional aspect of it when I do that, it really is changing things on so many different levels. And so if you think about, yeah, that's an energetic level, and then there's the hormonal level, and then then there's the physical level, and it's changing everything. So that creating space for that person to just feel safe and feel centered and feel heard, it just resonates so much on it shows up, in their birth and in their physical body and their breath and in
Yeah.
everything. Yeah.
1000%. Yes. Yes. And so again, like teaching my clients, how to shift their energy field, feel into it, how to shift into it, how to ground, right? It brings that safety because again, what we want is for the person to feel as grounded and centered and whole in themselves as possible so that they can allow again their innate inner wisdom and power to shine through and guide themselves through this process, right? And then that helps to bring in that trust in self, right? And there's nothing more important than trusting you and your intuition in parenthood.
Right. And so would you say that grounding is and centering is like a primary aspect of relating and healing?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. I think it's essential in existence. It's not even just in relating to another person, it's relating to yourself.
Right, right. Beautiful. Any other ways that we can apply this energetic wisdom to postpartum?
Um, well, yes, actually. We are able to channel energy, right? We are able to bring it up and channel it. I've had a lot of really beautiful experiences in which I was channeling rose-colored energy, and this is the color of unconditional love, right? And I have, been holding my babies, and maybe after a bout of like, being frustrated, yelling or something like this, right? Bringing them in, speaking to them, but then also envisioning how both of our fields are filling up with this rose colored energy. And they just really relax, really resonate. Like you can feel the shift, or at least in my experience, I saw the shift in my kids when I do this, And sometimes, like I've even like, when I kiss their foreheads, I'm kissing their pineal gland, right? And it's opened up a lot for them. Like I remember like doing that, when my son was sleeping once, the first time I did it, and the way he just moved, like I could tell he really felt it on a soul level. And a lot of times I tell my clients, like, because they're like, oh, but my child's only 1 or 2, like they don't understand, they don't get it. And I'm like, talk to their soul, talk with intention to their soul, and they'll understand. And I've had clients come back and be like, oh my God, like, I don't know how they understood, but they got it and it's working, Or I've done like cord healings between parent and child. Game changer. I have an experience with one mother, for example, her toddler was just like, super like all over her, like needing her, da, 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 just constantly la, 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 And so what I saw, sure, we have relational cords, but then on the astral level, we have what we call astral streamers. And this is a subconscious reaction and defense to not feeling heard or nourished enough. So like, we'll send this stuff out. Babies do this, children do this. And so I saw my client was super wrapped up, like, and she in exactly where she was feeling the reaction, like here in her heart and in the pit of her stomach. So in untangling these lines, right, these astral streamers, it was able to give her energetic space, right, and allowed him to have his own energetic space and to be able to fill himself up more instead of constantly demanding energy from his mom. And so we also did the thing of, talk to the soul. And then also I told her, okay, well, when he has his tantrum, go ahead and let him know, okay, this is a safe space here. You process your emotions. I'm going to go over here. Because sometimes the crying just like really just, it jars the nervous system. And like, then that's when we start reacting, right? And if we can't get the nervous system down, we're just in reaction, reaction, reaction.
Yeah, and I really truly believe that they know how to pitch their sounds to get a
Yes.
reaction from us.
No, because that's instinctual, and they're
Mhm.
supposed to. Like that's their survival. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. But how do we address that when it's just getting to be too much? So I recommended my client, explain this to their child on a soul level because she was like, "Oh my God, he's not going to get it. He's two," and I'm just like, talk to his soul, with that intention. Talk to his soul, pray, do it whenever you feel, most comfortable. You can do it when they're playing, or you can do it when they're sleeping, or you can do it when they're literally in your arms. But basically that, let them know, mommy is here. You do your thing. When you're ready, just come out and let me know. And literally, that's exactly what happened. The baby went off, had his tantrum, did his thing, came out, and he's like, all done, right? And then she was just like, oh my God, how great. And then she wasn't as triggered, she wasn't feeling as reactive and all these sorts of things too, right? But so again, so this mother was very worried about wounding her child, right? So I'm just going to go briefly back to the wounds, just to like help all parents know that we all come with a certain wound or wounds that are in place. Again, we come and we are incarnated here with a purpose. And through the wound comes our greatest gift. And the thing is I have a Brennan colleague that she actually showed how these characterologies and how these woundings are already in the natal chart. Okay, so the natal chart is the chart from the moment of your birth, right? This is the energy that you are grounded with in this incarnation. And
Are you talking about the same natal chart as like an astrological reading?
exactly, yeah,
Okay.
an astrological natal chart. Okay, so an astrologer would be able to tell you, okay, well, you've got this house, blah, blah, right? This Brennan practitioner showed how certain like placements have to do with certain characterologies. And she gives examples in her book. And the book is called Charting the Soul. Her name escapes me, but the book is called Charting the Soul. And she's a Brennan practitioner, and she shows you exactly our wounds are in our chart. So again, it goes back to that agreement that we have with our parents before we're born, that we are being born into this particular ancestral lineage for a particular reason with an intention, and we are supposed to do XYZ in our life. Again, supposed to, because free will, free will is a thing, right? And, within certain like things that, help to that are catalysts in our life for spiritual growth, right? These things do happen. And in between, we have, our personal choice, right? So again, moment to moment, you are literally creating your reality. So it really is about accountability, right? Taking ownership of your life, and then again, trusting the process as it unfolds, holding gratitude in the heart, and trusting the process as it unfolds. But again, like, our babies are going to be wounded. We're wounded. That's literally what we're here as humans doing, learning through the wounds. So don't be afraid of of that, but rather learn it, right? So then you can utilize it to your advantage and see the particular wounds that your child has, because there's going to be a gift. And then that way you can actually create an environment that helps to nurture and allow that gift to to expand, right? And then they give that gift to the world. So it's not a bad thing. There are no mistakes. There are opportunities, right? There's purpose in the pain. Suffering is a choice, pain is inevitable. It's what you decide to do with it. That's the important part.
Thank you for that reminder that with the wounds come the gifts. So it's kind of on the other side of that wound is a gift that has purpose in this person's life.
Yeah, and not just in this person's life, but in the whole of humanity, right? Because again, we're all connected. So this person really, understanding their wound and then diving into their gift helps the greater evolution of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. Beautifully said.
Yeah. Thank
you. Okay, anything else that you want to cover, or is there any messages that are coming?
The only thing that what's coming up is don't be afraid. You can have fear, right? And that's okay, but don't be afraid of it. Don't shy away from it. And in fact, the definition of bravery is feeling this fear and yet still going forward. So there's nothing wrong with you if you're afraid or if you're anxious or depressed. There's nothing wrong with you. It's simply information for you to process, and don't be afraid to reach out either. We're all here to help each other out, and healers need healers too, just like doctors need doctors. Everyone needs support. And I find that in really understanding the energetics of the human energy field, we can really come to living our life in a very fulfilling way, despite having fear.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting support, I don't think we're designed to do it alone. I think that it's very easy for us to get stuck and blocked and feel like there's no way to move forward, or to put one foot in front of the other, or to make that decision, or to understand that, or to even hear ourselves and understand what we're feeling sometimes. And I really think that we're not designed to do it alone. So I'm glad that you're out here doing your work. And we've brought together so many people who are doing amazing work. And there's somebody for everybody, So if you're not finding it within your own circle, you can always reach out and find it somewhere else. So yeah, that's great support.
Tips for getting in touch.
What is your best advice for pregnancy, birth, and or postpartum? And what is something that they don't tell you?
All right. My best advice is take it slow. Take it as slow as possible. And by that, I mean, don't think that you have to do everything, that you have to get everything ready at a certain time. Really ask yourself if it's really truly you that feels that something needs to be done, or is it a social construct that is telling you that it needs to get done in this certain way, right? And so by slowing down, you can really get in touch with your soul seat, your soul longing, and you can get in touch with your heart, instead of being in the mind so much. Because what I see a lot of pregnant mamas is they get stuck in the mind and worry, and they don't drop down to the heart. And then in the heart is where we can feel trust and gratitude. And then that's what allows us to surrender to the process of pregnancy, of birth, and then the eventual postpartum and parenthood. So if we don't slow down our thoughts, our actions, then we can't listen to what we truly need. And that is That's my best advice. Slow it down. You think you're going slow, but you're still having this stuff. Okay, take it down even slower. You know, you said that you were going to go on that play date, you know, if you're pregnant with your second. No, slow it down. Do something at home instead, right? Or you think that you have to have, you know, the baby shower or this in that particular way, but it's creating agitation. No, slow it down. Is it really you who wants it, or is it someone else? See how you can refine the circumstance or the situation for a different outcome. Because again, if you continue to have anxiety and worry or depression or something, it just means that something's not okay. Listen to your body. When something doesn't feel right, it's because intuitively your body's telling you this is not right. So when you slow down, you can better understand and digest and hear what the message is. What was the second question?
Second question is, I know I should ask them separate. Second question is, what is something that they don't tell you about pregnancy, birth, or postpartum?
Okay. So, what they don't tell you. Well, first off, I have to say they don't tell you like what, like, they don't tell you how difficult and how jarring postpartum will be. It's not that oh, you know, if you prepare enough, then you're going to be fine. No, you're still going to experience like a complete destruction of who you are as a person, and you're going to have to rebuild that identity. Like not to, you know, bring fear or anything into this, but literally you have to deconstruct your entire idea of who you are, because once you're a mother, once you go through, you know, the birth experience, you're a completely different person. You know, actually the neurological pathways in your brain are completely rewired. You have different parts of your brain that wake up too. So then you have to become familiar with these new aspects of yourself. And this also happens with fathers too, and that's something that they don't tell you too, is just how much it affects the fathers also, seeing the whole experience of, you know, seeing their partner go through all of this, and then, you know, and then having to hold that. And it doesn't have to be father, it can just be the other parent too, right? I don't want to limit it to gender or anything like that. The other mother, the other person, whoever is the other caretaker, basically. If there is another parent, because sometimes we're single moms too, you know, and then that's a whole other story. But they also don't tell you just how much support you need after the baby is born. Um, Straight up 40-day rest period, I think it should be, you know, really spoken about, just the importance of taking those first 40 days to rest after giving birth, and not feeling the social pressure to jump back and go back into society and act like nothing happened too, you know. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be challenging. No one can prepare you for the lack of sleep, for the over touch and overstimulation of the baby, of everything, right? Our nervous system is completely like at its edge, because also we just get really scared too of like, how am I going to be able to read this baby? I have no manual. I don't know what to do here, right? And all the advice in the world just does not prepare you for what the experience is going to teach you. So